Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special Waterstones virtual school event on World Book Day. Today, we are joined by John Patrick Green, who is the creator of the side-splittingly funny graphic novel series, Investigators. So John is going to tell you all about the latest book in the series, Investigators All Tied Up, and his laugh out loud special World Book Day adventure, Investigators High-Rise Hijinks. And then he will be excitingly answering some of your questions. So I have a list here of all of your pre-submitted questions, but feel free to also pop any that come into mind into the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen, and we'll try to get to as many as we possibly can at the end. And the session is also being recorded, so don't worry if you miss a bit or if you want to revisit any of it. Your teachers will be emailed a link in the next few days. So we'd love to also see pictures of you enjoying the event. So if you want to share them, please share the hashtag Waterstones Virtual Events. So that's all from me for now. So without further ado, please welcome John Patrick Green.
Hi, everyone. I am John Patrick Green. I am the writer and illustrator of the Investigators series of books. This is All Tied Up, which I hear has just recently come out in paperback in the UK there. I am in New York. So I'm very, very far away, and it's very, very early in the morning for me. It's about 6 a.m. So I woke up, but I'm eager to be part of World Book Day. This is my first time. Really, I just learned about the event. It sounds like a wonderful event. I hear that many people are wearing awesome costumes for all these different books that they love. But World Book Day, so as I mentioned, I work on this book series, Investigators, which is about these two alligators named Mango and Brash, and they are agents of suit, and they solve crimes and catch criminals by traveling through the sewers, of course, like alligators do. And they also wear vests, which stands for Very Exciting Spy Technology. So this is their most recent full-length adventure, but for World Book Day, there's this special adventure of Mango and Brash that I was very excited to create. This story involves them figuring out what happened to a missing bank. It's not so much the money that has gone missing. Of course, the money is also missing, but the entire bank has gone missing with the money in it. So they have to figure out what happened. And this exclusive story for World Book Day was co-written by me, as well as a different writer and artist team. You might recognize them as being Chris Hastings and Pat Lewis, who are my co-creators on Agents of Suit, which is the spin-off series of Investigators that stars other characters such as Bongo and Marsha, these badgers here. So the World Book Day we created together, where I came up with the story and I sketched out the comic pages, but then Chris Hastings, the co-writer on this one, he helped finish the dialogue, what the characters say, and then Pat Lewis, the artist, he did the final black and white art for this one. And so I'm really, really excited that you've all will have a chance to read this little adventure with the characters. I hope you enjoy it. It's a nice, if you've never read The Investigators before, this is actually a really, really good jumping off point, because you don't need to have read any of the other stories to get the idea of what's going on. So that's really, very exciting for me. And it's we can flip through it. It's a graphic novel, as you see here. So it's like a comic book. It uses comic book storytelling to tell a story, which is what I love. And of course, the full book, the big books, those are in nice, beautiful color. But comics are my favorite form of storytelling. I love that you can use images and words combined to tell a story. And I feel like they access a different part of our brains when they're reading them. And I've always loved drawing as a kid. And I'm sure that's true for a lot of kids. Usually very, very early on, you just start naturally drawing, and it was a thing that I've always loved. And because of that, I thought we would show a video of how to draw one of the characters from the investigators. So we're going to play a video showing how to draw Mango, who is, here we go. This one is Mango, and this one is Brash. And as you can see, they're both alligators. They both look similar, but they have some slight differences. Mango is the one with the round chin. Brash is the one with the squared chin. Of course, they're slightly different colors. But now, let's watch this video of how to draw them, and then we'll get to questions and stuff right after.
First, get something to draw on and something to draw with. It can be paper and a marker, like I have, but it can be anything that you have permission to draw on. So, I'm going to be drawing Mango from Investigators, and to start, I usually begin with the head, and I start with the back of the head, and then I draw 2 loops that will be where the eyes go, and then a long line for the top of the snout, 2 smaller loops for the nose, and Mango has a curved chin that comes all the way back to the back of his head, like that. And there is Mango's head. So next I do the body, or torso. And the torso for each of the investigators is kind of like a crooked square shape. And there you go. Pretty easy. And then I do the arms. So Mango's arm is just going to be at the side here. Finish that off to make 3 little fingers. And I will draw his other arm on this side and do the same thing. 3 little fingers. That's not perfect, but good enough. Then I do the legs. So Mango's legs, I'll start with this leg, are basically just tubes that kind of come straight down. They could kind of be a little bit at an angle, like that. And draw the next one, like that. And then I add feet, which will come out at an angle, with toes, just like the fingers, at the edge. 1, 2, 3. And then I draw little lines to indicate where his feet bend at the ankles. And then he needs a tail, of course. So the tail can just kind of hang like that. Getting very close to the edge of the paper. There's enough room. And then make sure that the tail goes behind his legs, like that. And now he's almost done. He basically just needs some details. So I'll give him little dots for eyes, and then a little dot for each nostril. I will draw ridges on the back of his neck there. They always have 4 at the back of their head. And then the ridges continue on the tail. There can basically be as many ridges that will fit. So now I will give him a mouth. So let's give him a nice smile, which can sort of be a little bit of a half moon or almost a banana shape, with a little bit hanging off one edge. Give him some sharp gator teeth. Fill that in. And because he's an investigator and he's going to solve crimes wearing his fancy vest, we have to draw that. Now the vests are pretty easy. I start with a V for the top of the vest, and then a W for the bottom of the vest, like that. Give it a couple of buttons, and now we're almost done with drawing Mango. He needs some little belly stripes. So there's usually about 2 stripes there, and then 3 stripes there, a little crooked. Now we have Mango, and he's basically finished, and he's wearing his vest, and he's ready to solve a mystery. But of course, because this vest is very exciting spy technology, we should give him a nice little gadget. So let's draw a little arm, robotic arm coming out from his vest here, with a little clamp at the edge, and I'll give him a classic magnifying glass as a gadget because detectives often need them to look closely at clues, and they can be a little hard to draw because it can be hard to make a circle look the proper shape. And I'll kind of close it off like that, and then I'll give it a few little stripes to make it look like glare on some glass. And that's how you draw Mango from the Investigators. And that one's Mango, and that one is Brash. And if you want to draw Brash, he is basically the same shape, but his head has a square chin, and that is the difference. So thank you very much for joining me as I draw one of my characters. I hope you had fun.
So that is basically, how you draw one of the investigator characters, Mango. If you enjoy, drawing and you want to learn more about how to draw the characters, many of the investigators' books at the back have a how to draw little tutorial. Not all of the books do, but some of the books do. So you might be able to learn how to draw the investigators, Mango and Brash, or you might learn how to draw other characters, such as the villain Crackerdile, or in one of his other forms, Waffle Dial. For anyone that needs an explanation of that, the villain Crackerdile is a giant crocodile that got turned into a cracker in the book. But then at a certain point later on, he becomes, instead of a cracker, he gets turned into a waffle. So you can learn how to draw him and a few other characters in the back of the books. And there are more books. If you're not familiar with this series, there are, of course, many more books. There are currently 7 investigators books, all tied up, being the most recent entry. And there are 2 books in the Agents of Suit series that follows the other characters that work alongside Mango and Brash. And there are more on the way. There's another investigators book called Class Action that comes out at the end of this year. And in that one, Mango and Brash will go undercover at a school. So it'll be an environment very, very familiar to a lot of us. And so speaking of schools, I hear there are lots of questions from the different schools out there. So if everyone's ready, I'm ready to answer some.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, John. That was brilliant. I mean, now I want to get a pen and paper and draw Mango myself. It's fab. So yeah, we've got time for some of your burning questions, and feel free to pop any questions in the chat as we go along, and we will try to get to as many as we can. So I can see already in the chat bar up at the top, Nate has asked, what is your favorite book that you have written?
My favorite book that I've written? My favorite one is possibly Heist and Seek, Investigators Heist and Seek. It was the 6th book in the series. And in that one, Mango and Brash go undercover to solve missing paintings from a museum exhibit, like an art museum exhibit. So famous paintings from all over the world basically go missing, and they have to figure out what happened. And in it, they try to go undercover as like artists. And so because I went to art school and I liked art as a kid a lot, I was able to put in a lot of more personal references and things. There's a whole scene where they're in like a painting class. So I got to make a couple of jokes about my experience of being in art school for that. And there's even there's a little bit of a spoiler for my own experience, is that when I was little, I learned how to draw from copying comic strip characters from the newspapers, characters like Garfield. And so in the story, there's a little scene, you have to look for it because it's just one tiny little bit where there's a flashback to a character when they were young and they were drawing, and they're drawing Garfield. So I included a little hidden Garfield drawing. And so that one's probably my favorite of them all, just because it's a little bit more has a little bit more myself in it, I'd say, I guess, even though there are a lot of them that have a lot of me in them.
Oh, lovely. And on the topic of drawing, what Field School have asked, do you have any tips to improve on drawing skills?
Oh, sure. So I like to think that when it comes to drawing something, it is very much a skill that you get better at the same way that you would get better at doing anything. So if you want to, say you want to play a sport, right? The first time you play, you're not really very good, or maybe you're a little good, but you're not yet the best because you've never really done it before, right? And so you get better by training and by practicing and doing it over and over and over again. And that's how you get good at a sport. And the same is true for like learning a musical instrument. The more you rehearse playing, the better you're going to get. And you're going to end up having things like muscle memory. Like if you're playing a flute, you get muscle memory in your fingers, right? And you also just begin to memorize the song and the music. And for me, that's very much true when I'm drawing something. So, the first time I'm drawing something, be it like a full story or a character, I don't really know exactly what it looks like. I'm doing it for the first time, and so I'm not used to it. And so I have to do it over and over and over again until I get it the way, till the way it looks, the way that I imagine it should look. And then the more and more I do it, the more natural and easy it becomes for me to draw it the way I want. So even like if you look at the investigators' books themselves, you can even see how Mango and Brash have how the drawings have changed a bit over the books. And I like to think that they get better, that the characters feel a little more natural as they go. But every time I create a new character, I have to draw that character over and over and over again until I get it right. And if I don't draw a specific character in the book for like a long time, then I kind of forget how to draw them, and I have to practice a little bit again to get it right. So, so for me, that's really what works, is just drawing as much as you can over and over, and trying just not to get discouraged. Just knowing that the more you do it, the better you will get.
Well, that's lovely advice. And on the topic of characters and character creation, Annabella from Six Rhinos has asked which character you have created is most like you.
Oh, that's a good question. People will often say which gator, which of the alligators, Mango and Brash, is my favorite, and I usually think of that as being like, which one do I relate to more? So of all the characters, I would say that it does boil down to the alligators, but of course there are two alligators. So the question is which is it? I kind of like to think that inside of us all are two alligators. And for me, you know, if I take Mango and Brash, you know, Mango is the silly one who in any given situation will do something funny or make a joke or do something unexpected that might get him in a little bit of trouble or, you know, whatever, right? And then there's Brash, who is always trying to do the right thing, the responsible thing, the thing that won't, you know, make a situation worse or whatever. And so within me, I'm always struggling with any given situation. If should I do the funny thing in this moment in real life, which might get a laugh, but also might get me in trouble, or do I do the responsible thing, which is far less entertaining, but also won't, you know, won't cause me any additional problems. You know, sometimes, you know, you make a big joke out about something and you just make it worse for yourself, right? So I'm always struggling between those two. So I feel like both Mango and Brash are me, but I do have to admit that the Mango side comes out a bit more often, so I'm a bit more like Mango.
Totally fair enough. West Hill Primary School have asked, what book recommendations can you share?
Other book recommendations. So I like a whole wide range of books. I do like graphic novels are pretty much my favorite things to read. I really enjoy I like a lot of comics that kind of have a story, but also kind of teach a thing or two. Like I can learn, like I like learning things as I read. So I really enjoy the science comics series. That's from First Second, where they have all these books that have stories, but they are about specific like topics, and they could be any wide range of sciences. So it could be about whales, or it could be about dogs or cats, or it could be about trees, or it could be about viruses, you know, plagues and stuff like that. And those I find fascinating because the illustrations are always wonderful. And I'm, you know, and I've mentioned how I enjoy graphic novels as a storytelling device because I feel like the visuals and the words combined engage your brain in a different way. And so I find I absorb that information better, you know, like educational information better when it's in the illustrated form. So I really like the science comics. But there's also a new book coming out from Dave Roman called Unicorn Boy. I think this comes out in March. I'm not sure. It comes out in March in the US. I'm not sure if it comes out in March in the UK, but I know it's coming out in the UK. It's a brand new book from my friend Dave Roman, who we didn't grow up together, but we went to art school together, and he and we collaborated on a lot of comics together. And so we both got our career started by making comics, you know, as a team. And this book, Unicorn Boy, is about a boy named Brian who one day wakes up and he finds he has a unicorn horn, and it gives him like very confusing magical powers. So it's you know, it's a graphic novel. It's very, very colorful, and it's very, very funny. And if you enjoy my sense of humor in my investigators books, you'll probably find a lot to enjoy in Unicorn Boy.
I really, really love Unicorn Boy as well. It's just so much fun. Oasis Shirley Park has asked, how long does it take you to write a book?
Oh, that's a good question. How long does it take me to write a book? I often like to say that it's less how long does it take me, and more how much time am I given to write a book? Because when you're creating something, often as a creator, like as a writer or an illustrator, you know, you might hear stories about how you know, it can be hard to know when something is done, right? Like if you're writing a story, you might hear about how, oh, this author, you know, they were writing it and they kept changing it over and over and over. They kept changing their mind about things. And when you have unlimited amount of time to create a drawing or write a story, you might just keep trying forever and forever and forever to try to make it perfect. but at some point someone has to tell you to stop and be like, it's good enough, stop, really, release the story, right? So when I'm writing an investigator story, I already have a deadline. I already have a date in which the story has to be done so that it can be turned into a book that people can read, right? So when it comes to investigators, I had to do kind of in my head the math on how much time it would take me to draw a story. And then I would know just how much time I have to write the story, because you usually have to write a story first before you can start drawing it. I kind of do a little bit of it simultaneously, but I'm given a total of about 6 months to come up with the book. And so I know that it takes me about 4 months to draw a full investigator's book, because an investigator's book is 200 pages, and I can draw about 2 pages in a day, when that equals about 100 days. And that's approximately 4 months, give or take weekends, et cetera, right? You know, it's a roughly amount to 4 months. And so if they give me 6 months in total and I need 4 months to draw it, then I have 2 months that I have to do all the writing in. And so I have to do that first. So at the beginning of those 6 months, I'll start writing. And then after 2 months, I will hopefully have the whole thing written. But very often I don't. Very often I still don't know the ending, or like there are parts in the middle that haven't worked out yet or whatever. But I need to start drawing it. Otherwise it won't get done in time, right? It's like a due date. It's like when your homework is due. I have to finish it by that date. So I'll start drawing a book, and then I'll just cross my fingers and hope that as I'm drawing, it'll suddenly come to me, oh, how the story will end. So for just the writing, it's approximately 2 months, and then the drawing is another 4 months.
It's an excellent process. Somerford Primary School have asked, when did you discover your love of reading?
That's a good question, because in some ways I don't exactly remember when I discovered my love of reading specifically. Like, I think when I was little, what drew me to reading was the drawings. What drew me to because I basically learned how to read. Like, I got excited about reading comic strips in the newspapers, like I mentioned Garfield, and of course other comic strips like Peanuts and Calvin and Hobbes and Far Side and all these great comic strips. And so I loved to read because I loved to experience the story that was told by those images. And after things like newspaper comic strips, I discovered like comic books. And back when I was a little kid, that we didn't really have graphic novels the same way we do today. Most comic books in the United States, anyway, where I was from, because it's very different overseas in different countries. But where I was from, most comic books when I was a little kid were just superhero comics. There were some others, but still there was this allure of superhero comics like Spider-Man or Batman and stuff, and the art was always amazing, and I liked drawing, and so I wanted to draw stories like they had in comic books. And so I needed to be able to read to fully understand a story, because the art kind of only tells part of it. You need both the art and the words to get the full story. And so I kind of enjoyed reading those stories, but then at a certain point, as I got older, and I would have to like read more for school, and when there became more freedom of being able to choose what I could read, I would discover other like books that were just prose, that were just words, that I would enjoy reading. And it was less a discovery that I enjoyed reading, and more just figuring out what were the things that I liked reading more than others, because I feel like everyone can enjoy reading. It's just a question of finding the right story for yourself that you like. Because some people like nonfiction and some people don't like fiction. You know, some people might just want to read, you know, memoirs or books about history or things, and other people might enjoy books about fantasy and science fiction and stuff like that. So it was probably, you know, I discovered drawing first, and I remember that vividly. When I was a little kid, I remember just loving drawing, and then the my love of reading was more of a gradual, slower process. Um, and even when I was a kid and I was making my own stories, I never even thought of myself as a writer, even though I had to write a story, even if it was just in my head. I had to write a story before I could even draw it as a story. But I never thought of myself as a writer, because I was just like, no, I'm an artist. I'm using art to tell my story. But of course, telling a story is still a form of writing. And so it was only much later that it really dawned on me that, oh, I am a writer. So I kind of laugh at it.
Absolutely fair enough. There's actually quite a lot of questions from different schools about whether there will be an investigators movie.
Oh, so that one is that's sort of a question that I can't answer, because I only know how to make books. I'm an artist and a writer. I make books. I don't know how to make a movie. I mean, I know how movies are made, but I am not a movie making professional. I am not like an actor or a producer or a director. And those are the, you know, or a movie studio, and those are the people and companies that get movies made. And so anytime you see a movie that's based off of a book, it's a studio or a producer who comes to the creator and says, hey, we like your book, can we make it into a movie? And then as the creator of the original material, I will say like, oh, that sounds, you know, they'll usually have an idea of what they want to do. And then you could say like, oh, that sounds wonderful. I would love for you to make that. Or, you know, or they'll have an idea where it was like, we like your idea, but we want to change everything. And then you as the creator say, I don't think I want you to make that into a movie. But as someone who just makes the books, I need like a popular actor or a powerful producer and a studio with a lot of money that is willing to make a movie, to be the one that has the interest in it. So I like to tell people, you know, if you happen to have like Ryan Reynolds' phone number or a famous actor like that, you know, just give them a call and say, hey, there's this book, Investigators. We think you'd find it funny. And then Ryan Reynolds will make a movie because he knows how to make movies. So I'd love it if it happens, but it's not entirely up to me.
I also think he'd be perfect for just all the characters. Just across
Oh
the board.
yeah, he'd of course do it because it's Ryan Reynolds. So of course it would just be like Ryan Reynolds Investigators, and then he would do every single voice. Yeah.
Bedford Primary and Nursery School have asked, what is the best thing about being an author? And also, do you think the pupils at Bedford could become authors themselves one day?
Yeah, like for the latter part of that question, I think anyone I feel can be an author, because I don't like I went to art school. I know how to read and I know how to write, but I don't have any real formal training in writing. I took some little writing classes, but they were in art school. I don't have a degree in English or literature or anything like that. I just have stories that I want to tell, and I figured out how to tell them in a way that I like. And I'm fortunate enough that there are other people that enjoy how I tell stories. And so I think anyone can be a storyteller, so long as you have a story to tell, and you know, you can of course take formal training, but you can also just discover on your own how you want to tell that story. And the most important thing to do, of course, to be an author or just a storyteller is you have to share your story. You can of course write something just for yourself to read, but if if you're making it a career, a profession, then you have to tell it to other people. And and I like to think there's an audience for everyone. So no matter what your story is, sure, it might not be for everyone out there, but there's going to be some people that will enjoy your story. So I think anyone can be an author. And for me, that kind of ties into the best part of it, is that I enjoy writing and drawing for myself, because I'm one of those people that I just make myself laugh. It's like it's great when other people laugh, but if I do something funny and it makes me laugh, I'm perfectly happy with that. So for me, the best part is just knowing, like, when I get to do school events, of course, this is a virtual school event, but when I get to do them in person and I meet the people who read my books, be they kids or parents, like there are other adults that enjoy reading my books, and they just tell me how funny and entertaining it is. And to me, that is kind of the most rewarding part, because when I'm creating for myself, it's kind of it's a little bit isolated. I work at home in an office. I exist, and this is where I live. I live in this tiny little box, and I write and I draw my stories. And then when they get released to the world, and then people tell me that they like them and they find them funny, that's to me, that's the best part. Just knowing that I have managed to make a few people laugh.
That's so lovely. They make a lot of people laugh. We've also got a question interesting from South Over CE Primary School. How do you come up with so many funny puns?
I'm not. It's. I'm not sure how I come up with them. I think it's more baffling to me how, like, I don't know how to stop coming up with them, I guess, is the thing. As I mentioned, I'm a little bit more like Mango. And so just imagine that in my head all the time. Like, anytime anyone says anything to me or whatever, my head's always going to places of how can I make that a pun or wordplay or something. I'm just always thinking of how to make any situation kind of humorous. Every now and then, of course, when I'm creating a story, I will have situations where, this scene needs something funny to happen, or someone needs to say something funny. And those are times when I'll often be like staring at a wall for a few hours before I can think of something, because the problem I always find with ideas is that they only come to you when you're not looking for them. It's like they're like cats in that way, where it's like if you want to pet a cat, the cat's going to like run away from you, but if you sit still, then the cat's going to come over and sit on your keyboard, right? And that's how ideas are. When you're not looking for them, that's when they hit you. But when you need one, you'll end up spending all this brain power to try and come up with something. So but fortunately enough, I often just have way too many, and I'll write them down on notes that I end up completely disorganized, just leave all over my apartment, little notes with little jokes, because I wrote them down before I would forget them. And then every now and then I'll do a spring cleaning and I'll gather up all my notes, and then that way I have like a big giant pile of jokes that maybe in there's a few that could be used in a book. So I just save all my ideas, and that's why it seems like I have so many.
That's glorious. I think if there were more puns in daily life, the world would be a better place. George in Narnia has asked, what was your hardest book to draw?
Oh, the hardest one to draw is possibly the one that comes out in at the end of this year in September, and that's Investigators Class Action. And that one, as I mentioned, Mango and Brash, they go undercover at a school, like an elementary school or we call them elementary schools. I don't know if you call them elementary schools. I know you have different grade numbers and levels and all that sort of stuff, but you know, a school. And the problem, what made it difficult is that schools are, of course, filled with people, with children, with crowds. There's like hallways and classrooms, and there's a lot of chairs in classrooms and a lot of people sitting in chairs. And those are things that to me are difficult to draw, like crowd scenes, and then drawing a room that has chairs and desks and people sitting in them and making it look proper, you know, making it not look weird. Those to me are things that are difficult to draw repeatedly over and over and over again. Because it can be a lot to keep track of. A lot of times when I'm drawing the investigators books, you know, Mango and Brash are moving from scene to scene, right? So I don't necessarily, I just have to worry about where they are. But then in this book, there are a number of scenes where they're like, Mango and Brash are in classrooms, and then there are other kids sitting at different desks. And I always have to keep track of where did I draw all these different kids sitting so that you don't have people just randomly switching places all the time. So that was a lot to keep track of. So that one was probably the most difficult. It sounds silly because you would think the book just before has like big pirate ships and pirates and boats and stuff, and you would think, oh well, pirate ship, that sounds like it'd be hard to draw. But that's a lot actually easier to draw than it is to draw like a dozen students sitting in school chairs. That's more difficult.
That's totally fair. So I think we've got time for one more question before we finish. So I thought quite a nice question to end on is from Carr Junior School. Do you have any ideas for more fantastic books?
Oh yeah, I have a lot of more ideas for upcoming Agents of Suit adventures as well as Investigators adventures. The most recent Agents of Suit, which was from Badger to Worse, this is only the second book in the series, and there will at least be 4 more that are coming out. So this one's only just getting right off the ground. The next one. Well, I don't want to do any spoilers because things can always change too with where the stories are going. But for Investigators, as I said, there's one coming out at the end of this year, and that is the 8th book in the series, and there will at least be 3 more after that. And so I have the basic ideas for the stories in my head, and there may even be a book that is kind of a whole different little experience for everyone compared to what they've read so far. But there are plenty more traditional Mango and Brash adventures on the way with some new bad guys, and some familiar bad guys might finally make a reappearance. And you'll also learn about a little more backstory of some other characters. You'll get to meet people like Mango's parents. You'll get to meet you know, find out a little more history of characters like General Inspector. Like you'll get a little slight insight to why he has a metal nose, things like that. So yeah, there's no stopping where the investigators' cases might take them.
Oh, so much exciting stuff in store. So thank you, everyone. And thank you, John, for that absolutely brilliant session and for answering so many of everyone's questions. And thank you to all the schools for joining us to celebrate investigators and, of course, World Book Day. And a reminder that the session has been recorded and a link to the recording will be emailed to your teachers in the next few days. And, of course, copies of John's brilliant investigator series and his special World Book Day adventure are available from all Waterstones bookshops. So thank you again for joining us and enjoy the rest of your World Book Day.